Hi guys, this is Rob from Waxidus Music, and I thought I would talk today about one of my most popular blog posts that I wrote a while ago. It was called How to Get Over a Creative Slump in Digital Music Production. It was something that I wrote over a year ago, but it's had thousands and thousands of hits and has obviously helped a lot of people along the way. So I thought I'd turn it into a bit of a video post and then direct you into the blog post itself at the bottom of the screen. But I thought I'd talk about a few things on film rather than just write it down on the blog. So there's several things that when you're producing music, as long as I have been doing it, or even if you've been doing it for every year, you always will come up against a brick wall or two, and you'll always find yourself in that situation where it's not going to plan, and basically you think, oh, this is it, I've had it now, I'm done, I'm washed up, I'm dried up, blah, blah, blah. But then you leave it for a while and then suddenly the magic appears again and it comes again, and so is your enthusiasm. But what do you do when you've got that block and when there is no enthusiasm? How do you combat it when you want to do something but you don't know how to get over, and you think, I can't just quite get there, but you want to make a track, so you sit there staring at your screen for hours on end, messing about with beats or keys or whatever it is you do, and you still don't know where to go with it. So I wrote a few things and I thought that I would put them into video form. Okay, so number one, don't be a sheep. By that, what I mean is, if you're listening to the latest top 10 on Beatport or whatever your desired genre is, don't go copying those tracks that you've heard in that top 10, because it's highly likely, and more than anything, that those tracks are months and months old anyway, and they were made a while ago and they've taken a while to come out, and the labels have just slowly released those as promos and so forth. So if you can end up being a carbon copy of the latest top 10, by the time you've released it or made the track or whatever, that kind of sound becomes cliched, and then people get a bit fed up with it. It's like, oh, it's a little bit run of the mill. But the best thing to do is to just try and not copy what is around at the current moment you're stuck. So just don't be a sheep. Number two, go back to your first love. And by that, what I mean is, go back to the records that got you into making music in the first place. So, whenever you're stuck, just go back and listen to those early records that you first got into. So for me, it was the Chicago house, the Detroit techno records of the late 80s, early 90s, and mostly, obviously, the disco house stuff came out in the 90s, which was Todd Terry and Masters at Work, Roger Sanchez, all that kind of stuff, DJ Sneak, those early raw filtered disco house records. Every time I listen to those, they always give me that injection that I need, and I think, God, yeah, I used to love this music so much. And then I might not necessarily produce that kind of music anymore, but at the same time, it reminds you of why you got into it. A big record for me also was Gat to Call Passion. I mean, I don't make progressive house, but I listen to it and it just gives me that lift that I need during that current time. So in order to go forward, you've got to go backwards sometimes. So go back and listen to those records that you enjoyed the most back in the early days of your production and DJing and your first love for music. Number three, GROUNDHOG synths. If you're using the same plugins every time you make a track, or you're using the same hardware every time you make a track, perhaps time to trade those in. So if you've got a VST plugin that you're familiar with, but you keep using the same presets and molding those presets into newer sounds, or you're starting from scratch, get some new VSTs and just mess around with something different and break the mold. So put your favourite VSTs on hold for a while and try and dig something new out, and you find that you come out with something completely fresh for your ears, and it really does help. If you're using hardware, the same again. If you've got a piece of hardware equipment lying around that you don't really use, trade it in, swap it up, sell it on, and buy something fresh, because there's loads and loads of good stuff out there. I've had countless hardware synths over the years, and I've got rid of them over the years and swapped and traded them, blah, 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 because they just ran their course. Some stuff you hang on to, but it's always best, especially with VSTs, because they're so disposable and they're so cheap, or there's a lot of them are really good free ones out there. Just get something new, do a little bit of digging online and just see what comes up with. But try using a new VST at least once every 2 or 3 months or something, just to freshen up your sound a little bit. Number four, treat your ears. So for example, if you produce disco house, but you also listen to it loads in the car as well, or on your way to work or whatever, Try and listen to something completely different if you're in the middle of a mental creative block. Try and listen to some ambient music or some classical or rock or whatever. Just take your ears away from the current thing that you're doing, so that when you come back to it, you've got fresh ears and you're not being swamped in listening to the same thing over and over. So for example, if you're into progressive house and you also go and listen to Sasha, it's a good thing at the same time, because you're listening to what Sasha's doing and you go, oh my God, that's amazing, I want to create something like that. But at the same time, you're still stuck in that mental block. So it's always good to just take your mind away and listen to a completely different genre altogether, so that when you come back to being in front of your computer in your studio, you've got fresh ears and you're like, right, I can start again now from the very beginning. So treat your ears, give them a rest, and from whatever you're doing, and then come back to it. Number 5, develop your hidden talent. By that, what I mean is, say for example, you're producing a track, again, disco house. I'm going to refer to disco house because it's what I do a lot of. So you're making a disco house and it's mostly an edit. So all you're doing is cutting and pasting and chopping up samples of an old disco record and sticking a few beats on it and a few sweep effects and things like that. And you become a little bit stale with that, and maybe that's part of the problem. You're doing the same thing over and over. That can also be a massive stumbling block. So the best thing to do is to take it to the next level. So by that, what I mean is take a disco loop, but also learn the chords of that song, learn what the root note is, and then develop your skills by adding some fresh piano chords or Rhodes chords or strings or bass lines, whatever, on top of that. There's lots of great tutorials on YouTube how to play keys for house music, dance music, techno, whatever. So try and take your production up a notch if you find that it's becoming a bit of a stumbling block and you're just repeating yourself and you're getting stuck in that loop. So go out there and find a new technique, learn how to program a drum beat in a different way, or take a pattern of a drum beat that is perhaps for tech house and add that technique into your disco house and make it a little bit different that way. Just try and add something new to your palette every time you come across a stumbling block. So for me, example, it would be to take a disco loop and then play a live lead line on top of that and work out the root note of that lead line, and then find a pattern around that by learning the scale of that root note and various other arpeggios and things like that, and develop it that way. So don't become stale, just keep adding little things over and over again to what you want to do. Just keep building and building and building. Number 6, walk away quickly. If it's not happening within the first 30 minutes, turn it off and walk away. Don't sit there pulling your hair out and going crazy over it. It's not worth it. So if it ain't happening within the first 30 minutes to 45 minutes maybe, then just quickly turn it off and just go for a walk, take the dog out, go out, do something. Just forget all about it, because there's no point in trying to force yourself into making music if it's not going to happen instantly. Not that it should happen instantly. Some things take time to build, but if you're spending 20-30 minutes and you're not even getting a groove, then just cut ties, turn it off and come back to it the next day. Number 7, going live. If you've been making tracks for a while and you've got a bit of a catalogue going of stuff, but you come across a stumbling block, then if you're using Ableton, for example, turn it into a live performance. So take all your tracks that you've done in the previous time and stem them off, and then turn it in from the sequencer view into session view, so that you can import them in and create a live set around that, whether you want to DJ it or you want to perform it live with pre-recorded loops, and put on some VSTs as well and jam live on top of that and experiment. So that's what I tend to do with a lot of my music these days. I'll make the track and then I will convert it over into session view, and then I can just start improvising it in many different ways, and then most of the time something new comes out of that and I go, oh right, I've done a new little way of doing that here. I could change that there, I could build that on there, I could add that to that, and I could blend that single that I made with that other single, and that becomes then a whole new way of looking at your work. And it's like, right, great, I can add these chords to that, I can put this pad on there, I can put an acid line on that. I never thought of doing it that way before, because your tracks are set in stone once you've made them in the sequencer view, or then when you turn over into the session view, you've got a whole new world of opportunity and possibilities. So convert your tracks into live performances. That's one way of breaking the mold. And then you can go back into the studio, into the sequencer mode with a new idea, that you would never have had you not experimented playing live. Take your studio outside and get some original sound recorded. You can do it on either a Zoom recorder, or you can even do it with your phone now, with the audio recorder apps on your phone, which are really good quality. Basically, several years ago, I did a university degree, and on that we worked on soundtracks. And I watched a movie called Looper, which starred Bruce Willis, and it was set in the future and the past and so forth. And we did a topic on that, and my university lecturer told me that the soundtrack was made entirely by samples from in and around his city, wherever he was from in America. So that gave me the idea to go out and record my own sounds. So what I did was, I did a project where I went out with a Zoom recorder, and I recorded pots, pans, hitting doors, kicking things, banging things, smashing things together, anything outside, the traffic, all that sort of stuff. Rattling sticks on railings, all kinds of weird things. And then in the house, I would record the kettle boiling, I'd record the gas stove, use that noise as a hi-hat, punching doors, kicking things, plonking things, whatever. The point is, go outside and get some original sounds, and then bring them back into the studio and put them into your drum machine, into your sampler, manipulate them, add effects, add reverbs, things like that. You know, and you create a whole new original, completely original set of sounds. And I did several tracks, which you can see on the actual post of this blog. And basically, I created several new tracks around that, and all the drum patterns on it were completely original. So go out and record stuff that is live and original sounds on your phone. You'll be very surprised what you get. And it got me over a big stumbling block at that time. So that's it for the video. I hope you've enjoyed that, and I hope you've taken something from this. Please leave a comment in the box below, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And I hope that if you are in a creative stumbling block, just remember that it is only temporary, and that you'll soon get over that and you'll start producing again. Hopefully these tips have been of use to you. Let me know if you need any more advice or any tips or whatever. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.